If you're a Portuguese fan, you obviously know Vitória Sport Club, but if you're a foreign fan, chances are the best team behind Chelsea in the Conference League is a complete question mark to you. The incredible part about it is that Vitória isn't a new emerging club. They're literally the club with the most presences in Portugal's first tier behind the three giants, and they have arguably the most passionate fan base in Portugal. Still, for one reason or another, the club flies completely under the radar, so today I'm going to shine some light on Portugal's most fascinating club. In this video, I'll go into detail about their origins, their unspoken successes, and the real reason why they're not highly rated abroad. But first, let me give you some context. The first time I heard about Vitória was when they were playing in the semi-finals of the Portuguese Cup against another Vitória. That by itself was enough to shock an impressionable 5-year-old, but the thing that truly captivated me was how weird their badge was compared to other clubs. Why did they have a man holding up a sword? That question, which a naive kid with no history knowledge might ask, could also be pretty valid coming from a foreign fan. So here's the quick answer. That man is Dom Afonso Henriques, the first king of Portugal, and is closely tied to the city of Guimarães, where Vitória is based. Known as the birthplace of Portugal, Guimarães is where Afonso Henriques won the Battle of São Mamede in 1128, paving the way for the nation's independence. By featuring him on their badge, Vitória not only celebrates the city's historical connection to the origins of Portugal, but also uses it as a symbol of determination and willingness to fight valiantly for their goals. It sounds like something you create just to feel like a tough club, but I can guarantee you it frequently translates to reality. Vitória spent the first 20 years of their history without a permanent home, and that problem, coupled with their financial limitations, prevented them from being competitive at the local level, let alone nationally. But after the inauguration of Campo do Bem-Levai, Vitória gradually rose to a completely different level. They quickly became the dominant force in the district of Braga, conquering 11 consecutive district titles. In the middle of this golden era of sorts, the club ascended to the first division, and right in their first rodeo, Vitória showed enough grit to survive in a new landscape, and to top it all off, they made it to the final of the Portuguese Cup. Way before Braga took some strides towards becoming a constant in Portuguese football, Vitória was already firmly ahead of them. Despite being relegated in 1955, they quickly made a return in 1958, and since that year, Vitória has participated in every league edition except in 06-07, but we'll get there later in the video. My point is that Vitória, thanks to some gritty support by their locals, rose to a level no club outside of Lisbon and Porto had ever been able to reach. I mean, it's only logical. Not only in football, but throughout the past couple of centuries, Guimarães has always embodied the underdog spirit, even in their rivalry with the city of Braga. Those who were from Guimarães, the Vimaranenses, learned from a very young age that they had to stick together and support themselves. Otherwise, they would become just another town in Braga. This passion is what most Portuguese clubs lack. If you go to a school in Coimbra or Aveiro and ask what club every kid supports, very rarely would you hear an answer such as Académica or Beira-Mar. The most likely scenario is that the kids support either Benfica, Porto or Sporting. On the other hand, in a school from Guimarães, you'll likely find the majority of kids support Vitória. That tenacity obviously pays off, even more so in an era where clubs relied a lot on their fan base and where the investor days were still a few years away. So, just 11 years after returning to the top flight, Vitória had a fantastic season, finishing in 3rd place, just 1 point behind Porto and 3 behind the winners Benfica. That tremendous season opened up the doors to Europe for the first time, and while they didn't find any meaningful success in their first attempts, Vitória would finally have their moment in the sun in 1986-87. With the likes of Jesus, Paulinho Cascavel and Andinha in their squad, Vitória finished in 3rd place in the league and made it to the quarters of the UEFA Cup, eliminating teams like Groningen, Sparta Praga and Atletico Madrid. That good run of form would extend into the next couple of years, with Vitória reaching the cup final in the 87-88 season before lifting their first ever trophy, the Super Cup, in the following season. But Throne, who the fuck cares? It was just a Super Cup. Well, to win it, a patched-up Vitória without their main striker Paulinho Cascavel beat Porto across 2 legs, a team that was literally crowned the best in Europe and in the world in a 2-year span. For all intents and purposes, this was Vitória's vindication after so many close calls and lost finals. In the next 20 years, Vitória would reach the podium on 2 other occasions, in 1998 and in 2008, before they finally clinched their first Portuguese Cup in 2013. Vitória is Portugal's 7th best team and the 4th most consistent without a shadow of a doubt. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like their legacy is a bit underwhelming, and that's where hurts them abroad. Just when Braga was beginning their rise under the leadership of António Salvador, Vitória was getting relegated. While they did bounce back and even ascended to a 3rd place finish in their first season back in the first year, they couldn't qualify for the Champions League in the next season. If you ask Vitória fans, they'll say that the ref cost them the match against Basel, and I completely get where they're coming from. But to be fair, they could have actually made history, finishing in 2nd place in the league and qualifying directly for the Champions League. Of course, had they not battled it all by dropping points in the last few matches against Académica, Belenenses or Passos de Ferreira. Ultimately, that's what separates Braga from Vitória. Braga has its faults for sure, and they drop points in crucial times that prevent them from being at the Three Giants level. But they have a stable leadership that never rewards mediocrity, but at the same time, it never allows the fanbase to control the club's vision. On the other hand, Vitória has had several different leaderships throughout the years. Thanks to this inconsistency, in one season the Vit3ria are betting on their academy, while in the next one, they're putting all their chips on scooping the best hidden gems in Portugal's smaller clubs. I'm obviously exaggerating, but at the end of the day, Vitória is a club that lacks a clear development strategy. Just last season, when it looked like they finally found a manager who could both coach its players and gain the trust and support from the fans, their president sacks them for having an undisclosed meeting about a potential departure. I'm not saying Mr. Zé de Boina was in the right, but impulsive decisions like this one shouldn't make any Vitória fan comfortable about who's running the club. Another instance of poor management is how unprepared the squad was for both of their failed Conference League qualifying attempts. It's absolutely inexcusable that the 5th best team from Portugal cannot beat the 2nd best from Croatia or Slovenia. They can argue that the squad isn't at its full strength and that their opponents were less rusty since they began the season earlier, but that shouldn't be an excuse. By mid-May, Vitória already knows what their fate will look like at the beginning of the following season, so they should plan accordingly. Obviously, this is easier said than done, but if Braga could evolve to this level of competitiveness, why can't Vitória do the same? Thankfully, the club seems to be slowly heading in a more successful direction. António Miguel Cardoso has made some mistakes that I've already criticized in this video, but he has also been responsible for finally making some decent sales. The appointment of Rui Borges also looks like a smart decision. The former Moreirense manager has turned an average group of players into one of the most solid squads in Portugal and now also in Europe. I'm not gonna lie, Vitória didn't demolish the best teams in Europe, but they won 4 out of their 5 matches against the exact type of teams that would eliminate them in the preliminary rounds time and time again. I've made this video before their match against Fiorentina and they can still lose that final round and miss out on the top 8. It's unlikely that they do, but it's possible. Either way, I hope this campaign goes on for a little longer. It will obviously be tough to win the competition, but a run to the quarters like in '87 is completely achievable. I'm fully aware of Vitória's financial limitations and how much they would benefit from an equal distribution of TV rights, just like other clubs in the first division, Three Giants included. I just hope the club focuses on what they can control instead of always playing the victim role. They have a huge fanbase and they could grow it even more if they spent a bit more time and money on marketing themselves as Portugal's cult club. People travel to Germany to be in the Yellow Wall, they go to Belgrade to watch Partizan vs Red Star, so why can't Vitória brand themselves better? There is so much potential there. They have a conqueror in the badge, the coolest in the country from a neutral point of view, yet for a foreigner, they're just a question mark. Maybe time will help them, even if there's no effort in their marketing. At the end of the day, a player's origin is always celebrated and remembered. That's how Sporting has grown its reputation abroad, and I believe if Vitória continues to export players of the caliber of Jota or Rafinha, it's only logical that more eyes will be on them. Until then, I hope they continue evolving. They're a club that I respect, and Portugal certainly needs more teams that can actually fill their stadiums. What do you think? Will Vitória ever rise past their current level? Let me know your opinion in the comments, and as always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content about Portuguese football on your timeline. Thanks for watching till the end, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the comments.